bringing your whole self to work is not what we pretended it to be. It's like, be your whole self, be your whole self. And then we're like, wait a minute.
Jamie went overboard. Now we can't bring our whole selves.
Jamie told me her whole story from the date she had this weekend and how it went wrong. And I really didn't have time for that. So Jamie put a little bit of that back in the bucket. Welcome to Brave Proximity, the space where leaders and changemakers finally exhale, tell the truth, and get the validation they rarely receive. This is not a how-to podcast. This is not motivational wallpaper or corporate comfort language. Here, the messy, is it just me? Moments become turning points. I'm Marissa Green.
I'm Susan Page, and we are futurists and practitioners who have spent decades inside turbulence, helping leaders who care deeply navigate culture, crisis, egos, expectations, and everything in between. We've seen the gap between what leaders and changemakers feel and what they're allowed to say. Brave Proximity is a place to close that gap. Each episode starts with the elephant in the room, often disguised as a pet peeve, and we follow it to the deeper truth underneath. We do not just talk about leadership. We get close to what leadership actually feels like.
So Susan, I don't know when this happened, but at some point, bringing my whole self to work became a bigger job than actually just showing up for work. When did it get so complicated?
I know it was such an easy phrase to say, bring your whole self to work. And then it was also a rabbit hole of, well, I looked in the mirror. I don't know if I like my whole self. What parts of myself should I really bring? What if I bring my whole self and a part of myself shouldn't be there? Which do I leave at the door?
Yeah.
Yeah. What a friendly phrase. And then all of a sudden it just got sliced and diced and murdered. And now we have no idea what self we should bring to work.
Which self do we bring? And if the culture will support it. I think we're basically also getting to the elephant in the room, which is, I don't even know if I want to bring my whole self into your culture.
Right.
I don't know if you can handle my whole self.
If you you can't handle my whole self.
Can't handle my whole self.
I love that. And when you named the elephant in the room earlier, I just thought this is spot on, because when we zoom out, I do think a whole thing is about the system that sets it up for success. But also there's another piece here that I want to talk about too, is how quickly we decide that a term is going to be, oh my God, everybody's going to fall for this. Everybody's going to dive into it. And then we just yank it back.
Right. The
nobody's
yo-yo
business. Yeah.
The yo-yo of trying to fix the system. I think these well-meaning intentions of something like bring your whole self to work, right? Probably a well-meaning, and I know you have some research around where it started initially and then how it gained popularity. And I think what we're getting to first, though, is this idea of you'll hear these phrases that get put out that organizations grab onto because it's in the zeitgeist and it becomes socially important and it's something that employees are asking for. And so a company will try to move mountains to figure out trying to tackle the idea of allowing, say you have a 10,000 person company.
Yeah.
Trying to tackle the idea of creating an environment where 10,000 people feel like they can bring their whole selves into this space. It is highly unrealistic. Yes. Even the best intended organizations to create safe spaces where diversity can thrive, even those can't possibly create a space where 10,000 people can bring their whole selves and feel really amazing about it. And so that's then where the yo-yo thing starts to happen. It's like, we're going to do this, be your whole self. And then we're like, wait a minute.
So Jamie went overboard. Now we can't bring our whole selves.
Jamie told me her whole story from the date she had this weekend and how it went wrong. And I really didn't have time for that. So Jamie put a little bit of that back in the bucket.
Yes. And I often think, and we're going to get to this later in the show, but we are overcomplicating this in so many ways. And I think that, I do also believe people of color and people of different dimensions of diversity never really got the opportunity to bring their whole self to work. So
No,
it's not like when
no.
the Band-Aid was ripped off that
Right.
the whole company and I don't blame people. I think we should all say and question and be curious about what that even means when it comes out of
Mhm.
somebody's mouth, because
Mhm.
there are always going to be um, guardrails around it. And this is,
Yeah.
I get upset too when people talk about professionalism. We just
Mhm.
released the episode on executive presence, and I think professionalism is another one of those ambiguous, do
Mhm.
my definition, not yours terms.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
but we can easily separate professionalism from creating a workplace where people feel seen, heard, and like they don't have to work extra hard to bring a version of themselves to fit in.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I feel like it's so first of all, creating that space looks different for every single person based on their life experiences, based on who they are, not only from a diversity standpoint, but also just like the uniqueness of who we
Walks
are
of
as
life.
individuals, walks of life.
Yes.
And I've really struggled with this. We had a colleague that we both worked with when we were at our company before who was adamant about we are not going to say bring your whole self to work. Like
Yeah.
she knew then, this was 10 years ago, that she was like we're not going to start saying that because that's not what people need. I don't
Hmm.
and this element of when that became a catchphrase, when that became something that organizations tried to do in true systematic fashion, the system didn't change. All of the onus got put on the individual to
Yep.
figure out how you're going to come into this space that isn't going to change at all. Like we're not really going to teach people how to hold all of you, but we
Yes.
want you to figure out how you bring your whole self into work.
Yes.
And I remember when this was all going on, and thank goodness she said don't do whole self, but I was still kind of like, but wait a minute, like ended up going with something about being authentically you. When we did the executive presence episode, I got a DM from somebody who was like, love this, love it. And also, I'm not even sure how to be my authentic self in normal cases, let alone in the office.
That's true.
And I think our whole selves is something similar. It's there is so much inner work to be done to be able to show up in any space as your full,
Yes.
authentic, and wholly unique self. And to expect people to be able to do that inside corporate environments that are already so structured and pressured for people to fit in and to show up a certain way,
Yeah.
it's like we just set ourselves up for failure. And not only that, we asked people to do something without any support and without the environment to actually hold what we were asking of them.
Yeah, I okay, I love that. I also want to say I'm so stoked on the audience engagement is I
Mm,
too am getting texts and DMs and people, and people pushing back but also validating and
mhm,
wanting other things and saying what about this? And so this is exactly why we created this community, is for that.
mhm,
And can't wait to get more audience engagement. I want to say this kind of story too that happened to me, that as we think about this and the system, and I think that this is a really good, like, stop doing this if you're doing it, organizations. um, we still
this is a clear do and don't
do and
episode.
don't, okay? In a position once, I had to do 8 hours of assessments to get
Oh my
into
gosh.
this
Oh my
role. And it was very arduous. I went along with it and I was like, okay. And I was like, because I'm a learner, I love to see
god.
that stuff.
Mhm,
So I never try to fake it till I make it there, because
mhm,
it is not going to serve anybody good. So, long story short, did everything that I needed to do. My profile matched exactly who I was,
mhm,
which it showed in the interesting things like, you know, she thrives on innovation. She builds a lot of her trust through relationship and connection, like all the things that we already know.
mhm.
And I got into this organization and it was as if they hadn't even read the report.
They were like,
And
"Oh, this is who you are?
uh,
Oh, wait a minute, we let her
oh,
in?"
I know. And I thought that felt like I was like a baby in a nursery being switched. Like, did you Did you accidentally get me and you thought that it was somebody else? Like, do you want to go back and put me into the orphanage? Like, I don't know. So I'm just saying, do what you say and say what you do. Don't say something fancy. Don't do something fancy because it's the shiny toy and you're like, we need that. If you're not ready for it, that's okay too. But all people want right now is transparency, truth, consistency in what they're told and what they experience.
Okay, so I think this is huge because really this could be an underlying. If you are a CEO, a CHRO, a leader who's making decisions for your organization, hear this, because it is the underlying thing that could save you and your people a whole lot of energetic waste. And that is just be real and upfront about what you actually want. Like, don't pretend to be something you aren't. And then the right people will come into your organization and the right people will stay. And there are so many organizations and leaders out there pretending to want something different. And then what happens, I saw something the other day that said people don't leave organizations. They leave the gap that exists between what the organization told them it would be like to work there and then what it actually is like to work there. And
I
this
think
is
that's the new phrase, Mari. I think that's the new phrase. It used to be people leave managers, but I think you are, because managers are part of it too. But I think you are really onto something with that. I think that's really, that is the new people leave X, Y, and Z.
Right, because and in the sense of bringing your whole self, right? So when and you could actually apply that to any of the potential catchphrases that come on. I think this happened with growth mindset. I think this happened. We've been in organizations where it happened with decision-making phrases of like, how are we, right? Where organizations will kind of grab onto something that feels like they need it because everybody's talking about it without necessarily thinking about whether it actually aligns with their true desire of the culture or the organization. And then what happens is this significant gap between what they're saying and what they're doing. And then that is when people leave. And on the flip side, you could save yourself a lot of heartache if you're just clear about it. And I think that organizations have a hard time truly saying what they are. They have a hard time saying what they are because when you say it, it sounds shitty.
It sounds shitty. This is exactly what I'm saying. Executives, organization, whoever is speaking on behalf of these companies, they do not want to say those things because it coming out of somebody's mouth, it sounds so awful. But then I often thought about this is, can't we just like polygraph somebody? And when they talk about culture, like every time that it's inconsistent, they get like a shock collar on a dog. It's like, and then, so then the truth comes out.
Yeah.
But there is, we talked about, and who knows when this episode will air, but I'm sure there's going to be other leaders that do stupid shit in between. But so we talked about the Uber guy who said the CEO says like, I'm going to send you a message on Saturday. If you don't answer it, then on Sunday. I would love to hear him describe the culture. Like, what exactly would he say about the culture? That it's hustle culture? That seems to me like I am, I'm not an employee. Like, I am somebody that you are going to give orders to. And if I don't do it, then I'm fired. Like, no, thank you.
No, thank you. Well, and also, here's the thing. I think that a lot of organizations have gotten everybody has a personality. In the same way that we as individuals have personalities, organizations have personalities. They often are a mirror of the CEO or of at least like the general C-suite, because typically a CEO is also going to choose people like them unless they're really being thoughtful and intentional about
which we have seen examples of that.
Yes,
not as many, but yes, really good.
There are a lot of organizations that will do that, right? Everything we talk about is sort of a bit of a mix where it might be the majority, but it isn't everyone, or isn't all organizations. But But I have started to see some of these organizations, especially if we're talking about big tech, where
Mhm.
you can't escape what is also being said by your leader in the public. Like,
Mhm.
they tend to be a little bit more honest about what it's actually like to work inside that organization, also because of the environment that is required to move it. So
Yes.
if you're a unicorn or something like that, like, there are some clear things. But it's so interesting to me because part of the work that I do is helping organizations create their talent value proposition, right? And a
Mhm.
TVP is almost always the best of the best, right?
Yes. The
And
glow.
the
Ah.
exactly. Here are all the ways that we're the most wonderful organization.
Yeah.
And they're great to put together because but there's always a rub. There's a rub somewhere where
Mhm.
in the data you know whether you're actually shining in an area or if you aren't.
Yes.
And
Yes.
inevitably there is someone in the organization, typically somebody like higher up, maybe more removed from the data, who's like, "But we do this really, really well. Like this should be part of our talent value proposition." And then everybody is like looking in the room like, "We don't do that so good. Like I don't
Yeah.
know if we should put I don't know if that should be on there, but somehow it gets on there, right?" And you and
Yeah.
I have had this conversation before where I wish that there was a mechanism, even if you only looked at it internally, and I think we're gonna like try to figure out how to create this.
Yes.
Even if you only looked at it internally, what is the mechanism that tells you point blank what you're not good at? And
Yep.
then if we can appropriately create a way for organizations to be able to put that out to people so that when you join an organization, you see what's amazing and you see the pitfalls. Because some
Yes.
people can manage those pitfalls just fine. Some people can say,
Absolutely.
I can thrive in that environment. I can help
Yep.
fix that. I've got skill sets that you need for bing, bing, bing. But if you only tell them what's good and you don't tell people what they aren't going to be able to do or what you can't deliver for them, then you're not going to be able to get the right people. And now
Yeah.
we've kind of like moved on from
Well,
whole self,
that's
but
inefficient too, and I think that's
yeah.
a so, we've talked a lot about it, we've dissected it. Let's think about some of the reframes, and
Mhm.
one of the biggest reframe that I wanna talk about is the system needs to be set up to absorb the whole self,
Right.
whatever that is. And as we were thinking through, well, what would that look like? It kind of links back to what you were just saying about the employee value proposition or the talent value proposition is if you're honest about where there's a gap, but you're working on it, I'm in it with you. Like I know
Mhm.
I'm not going to go to any organization that is going to be perfect for me
Mhm.
unless it's Susan Page LLC. and so which you could see some patterns emerging here. Uh but what I would say is I would appreciate so much, and this is human-centered leadership. If somebody
Mhm.
said,
Mhm.
"You know what? We really are messed up right now on how to make decisions in the right way. And, I don't think we push decisions down to the right levels of the organization. We are working on it, but we want to hold each other accountable. And this is how we're
Mhm.
going to make sure that we move the
Mhm.
needle on it." But I'll be
Mhm.
honest, we're not there yet. We got a lot of high level decision making. We've overturned some decisions. Not super proud of it, but this is where we're at. It feels like organizations themselves have a performance factor where they have to be perfect or else,
Yes. Yes.
then what? Then, oh, employees might not be perfect if they know that we're not perfect. Guess what?
Mhm. Nobody
Humans
is.
aren't perfect. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Actually, that's such an interesting idea in the realm of bringing your whole self. Like, we can't expect individuals to bring their whole selves if the organization isn't willing to put their whole self out on the table. And that,
Absolutely.
like,
That,
therein
that
lies
that's yes. Yes.
part of it, right? Is
Right.
an organization really does work very hard to present the best of. And
Mhm.
they have to do that to the board, they have to do that to the public, and they have to do it, they equally do it to their employees. And then that trickles, right? So then leaders, if you think about a leader bringing their whole self to an organization, they're kind of caught, or middle management, they're kind of caught in that in between because they have to, they're working within the ideals of what it looks like to perform, be professional and
Mhm.
executive, and also need to be able to relate to the people on their teams by being more human and bringing more of their whole self.
Yeah.
But they're also limited. And I have to be real. I don't necessarily the whole self conversation also kind of attaches to the idea of a company being your family. And like and part of
I
the
was okay ditching that one. I was
Right?
okay throwing that one away.
I don't need the org to be my family. I might want to make a best friend, but I don't need it to be my family. But part of the reframe for me is not only like, yes, an organization needs to be able to uphold like the whole self. I think part of the reframe for me though is, let's just be real about whether we actually think whole self is something to try to attain inside an organization.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
like maybe that isn't what we all need to be doing, and how do we create some space to see and recognize individuals for who they are and their
Yes.
value. And you had a really good reframe in our prep for this that I want you to talk about, is that listening. Like
Yeah.
part of the reframe is stop putting the onus on other people and start putting the onus on you to just be aware.
Yeah. No, and I don't know if we talked about it enough. The point that you just made was, when we said that phrase, we basically said, now you figure that out.
Yeah.
And so it was like, here's a gift, but go work for it. And I think in the spaces where if you could epitomize, this organization really allows somebody to show up authentically, it is because people care about others as humans. And I've been in I've and I think that this is, we talk a lot about this, but not to go tangential, but again, I think there's a lot of space now for people to feel like, I don't want to know anything about my team that is going to impede their performance, or I'm going to have to get uncomfortable because somebody has a sick grandparent. But like, where I'm going with this is, the easiest way for somebody to feel heard and seen is for you to deeply listen to what they say, to notice when they hesitate, to notice when they get energy about something, and then peel that open. And you don't have to understand every dimension of somebody as a colleague, as a leader, as a second level leader, but you do need to work hard to listen to your people and build some type of connection that doesn't have to do with, where's that PowerPoint deck that I am owed?
Exactly. It's recognizing that what's coming to me is, I feel like the job to be done is less about overcomplicating the idea of whole self in order to create a space where 10,000 people can bring their whole selves,
Yep.
and more about recognizing that people are multifaceted, and the team you have coming in, or the team that you are working with, they don't come with an on and off switch that says, I've now entered the office, and so therefore my whole self, or the rest of what's happening in my life, gets turned off or is no longer on my mind or part of my energy. And I think the same is true about an individual trying to figure out how to show up, right? We spend so much energy working toward being something we think other people need us to be, or being a way we think we should be inside a corporation, that it is wasted energy. I wish there was on and off switch. Like, well, I don't. If you've seen what's that? Severance?
Severance.
Have you seen that show? Oh my God.
No. I don't have an on and off switch, period. But yes. Okay.
We actually should, that would be a really fun community activity if we all, like a book club, but we did Severance. as like for the brave
I'm in.
proximity because it's fascinating. It's literally an on and off switch, and it doesn't turn out to be great either. And that's the point. We're whole people, we're whole individuals. And
Yes.
so you don't need to overcomplicate it by trying to hold everything everyone has to bring in. You just need to recognize they have a bag that they're carrying. They have
Yes.
something that they're bringing with them, and be attuned enough to know when that bag is a little heavier one day. And
Yeah.
and and it is impossible for them to just leave it at the door. And so, help them carry it. You don't have to do the thing for them, but just recognize that they're carrying something heavy and give them a bit more grace, or at least have an attunement to the idea that they are a whole person and that your PowerPoint isn't the most
Yeah.
important thing in their life.
Well, absolutely. And I think a lot of leaders that may be listening may not because they're like, I don't like what I'm hearing because that's me. I do feel as though one of the barriers to leaders that want to be that way is still the struggle with now I have to treat them like a person if I have to give them challenging feedback. And I think to myself, you signed up for that. That is
Mhm.
not, if you can't do that as a leader, then you don't deserve to be a leader
Yeah.
because that should be a daily occurrence. You should perfect leading in a way where you're going to I mean, as a leader, this was my secret sauce is I would wake up every morning and I would be like, today's going to be a shitstorm. And when it wasn't a shitstorm, I was pleasantly surprised. But when it
Yes.
was, I was like, okay, I knew I was going to have to deal with this. I'm going to let it wax wane, come in, come off. But that that is leadership. That's leadership at all levels. That's leading yourself too.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
I think we all need to get comfortable with number one, if we're saying something that an organization is, say also what it isn't and be
Mhm.
honest. And
Mhm.
then I think the second thing that we talked about deeply is be intentional about listening and
Mhm.
listening for human signals that somebody is really energized one day. Hey, this is good. You're in a good thought space. Hey, you want to take this on? You want to innovate today? Somebody's carrying heavier weight. Hey, why don't you what would make you happy right now? What
Mhm.
would bring you joy? What can I do for you?
Mhm.
Simple questions. They're not going to ruin, it's not going to cause your stock to tank by just being a human.
No, no, and that's therein lies, I think, one of the bigger underlying issues, and we should probably do a separate episode on this, which is so many times leaders and organizations avoid doing the real work of meeting somebody in that human place because they think that the time is not worth it. And they think that the time is somehow going to impact overall productivity, overall results.
Yeah.
Time is money. Time is money,
Mhm.
but it isn't. It's an old school way of thinking about what you can accomplish as a team if all you're thinking about is someone's time as money. And I think there is evidence, there are studies. We know that if people are treated well, if they are understood, if they are given space when they need it, they will come back tenfold. Look at the early days of the
Yes.
pandemic. People were so
Yes.
thrilled to be able to just have a job and like keep
Right.
working and to feel like their organization was like, dang, this sucks. We're all in it together. That people like rallied and organizations
Yes.
overperformed. And this is that thing. Meet somebody in their moment with their bag and
Right.
make it a little easier for them with their bag of shit that they're carrying around.
Yes.
And
Yes.
you will reap the rewards of that for years to come because that is where real loyalty is built.
Yeah, I 1,000% agree. I think what you're talking about too is discretionary effort. And
Mhm.
people, if you want to get the best out of your team, it's not going to look like the best every day. But when
Right.
you look overall, you're going to have peaks and troughs. And if you can lead in this way, your peaks and troughs are going to elevate you at an average above,
Mhm.
what your actual performance at, just I'm gonna do the basic things. I'm not gonna know my people would be. I mean,
Mhm.
we've seen it before. I have to tell you one quick story and then I know we need to wrap up, but in a prior role, I had a couple of the executives as part of my remit and I came into the organization and I thought, well, again, Susan builds connection. So I reached out to this person and said, "Hey, next time you're in town, do you want to get a coffee? I'd love to learn about your leadership style." And this person wrote back, my commitment is to the board and my time is very precious, and I choose to focus solely on things that will drive the company forward.
But
And I
my
thought,
leadership is not that.
I thought, there in itself lies the problem.
Oh
Thank
my
you. I
gosh.
gave it a thumbs
Oh,
up and left it at that.
thumbs
But,
up and then leave it behind. And
yeah,
there are people like that in organizations. I mean, this is the crux of the issue, right? And I think what we can kind of wrap with this, but it's this idea of bringing your whole self and doing that within a system that already has a great deal of structure and expectation is really difficult. And so let's stop putting the onus on the individual to figure out how to open themselves up more and create kind of like force their whole self into the
yeah.
space. And let's flip that around and see if we can just simplify it a little bit and say, like, leaders just meet people at their human moments with a bit of
Yes.
grace.
Yes. Next time somebody says bring your full self to work, I'm going to roll out my medieval scroll of, okay, what does that mean I could wear what I want? Does that mean I could talk about,
Right?
can we go to happy hour? Like, what does that mean?
Do you
Um,
want to know about my dog throwing up over the weekend,
y-
or only just the part that, like, why I was late this morning?
I don't want to trigger somebody by talking about my infected toenail.
Right.
Okay, no, this is great, Mari, as usual. This is a big episode. We have lots of opinions on it. I can't
Mhm.
wait to hear what our listeners
I
think.
know. Yeah. Tell us what you all think and what it feels like for
Yeah,
you and your organizations. Follow us on LinkedIn. We also, like, I don't know if we've shared this with everybody yet, but we're on YouTube. You can watch these on YouTube. We've got an Instagram account. We're working on figuring out TikTok. I don't know.
it's
Um,
one day we're gonna be there.
we're gonna figure it out. We're learning. We're learning. All right.
All
Great.
right,
See you
thanks.
later. Bye.
See you.